This is Zach with Achilles Financial, and we are back, and what an eventful day in the market. We saw a lot of growth going into the day, and then most of that was shed going into the last hour and a half of the market open trading hours. What I've got here on the screen is SPY. Again, this is an S&P 500 ETF. What we're looking at here is just the market performance over the day. This is a good indicator that we like to utilize a lot and very often. As you can see on the week, we've seen a very healthy return on investment at 3%. The important thing to note here is over the course of the past month, we continue to rocket higher. And this is not a single stock. This is a market-wide indices that we're tracking here. One of the key things I'd like to highlight is look where the market closed at right here at 302, and then it's up nearly a full point and a half, 2 points since then. So there's still going to be some dissemination of the information that's coming out, and the big question is, what information is that? If we look at the week, again, we've been going off strong potential vaccine news, strong banking performance, as well as the reopening of the country and the economy. So you're going to continue to hear that. That's the buzzword right here. As you can see that today, this morning, just looking at the single day chart, we opened up higher. This is after announcing that we actually had higher than expected unemployment numbers coming in at 2.1 million compared to just under 2 million additional unemployment numbers. However, as we've seen over the course of the past month, we really are shrugging off anytime we see that Thursday push. So if we're looking at anytime we see the Thursday numbers here, so if we go all the way back, so this is the week view, that's why I'm causing problems here. But you can see Wednesday right here, Thursday we bump up because the numbers are getting lower each week. So less and less people are filing for unemployment. So another Thursday bump up here into Friday. So, and we're seeing that continuation here where the market was once again rising higher. And then we had the announcement that there's going to be a executive order from President Trump that he signed in today, and it didn't really have a huge impact in terms of the actual executive order, but rather the intention or the follow-up of that executive order, which is going to be to limit the capabilities to monitor as well as to choose who gets to say what on their platform. So this is a big First Amendment, big free speech. Again, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out going forward. It is a law that does seem to have, or at least potential legislation does seem to have some support on both sides. So it'll be interesting to watch that as we go forward. However, that did move the market, but even more important than that information is we do have news of China. Again, the big China push is going to continue to be at the forefront of the news as to what can move the stock market. I think that there's not much concern at this point in time with the broader market of a second wave of the coronavirus, and that is largely in part due to the fact that President Trump has said we won't close again. A lot of leaders in the various states say that we will not close again because hospital volumes seem to be capable of managing the load at this point in time. So the big elephant in the room at this point in time is China. Earlier this week, we had Pompeo say that we expect that the Hong Kong autonomy is no longer a true statement. What does that mean? So currently, I think it's like a 100-year deal where Hong Kong is independent of China. It was returned from England, and it's not supposed to really go back under Chinese control for another 20-25 years. A lot of the protests that we saw last year were in retaliation against additional censorship and additional human rights infringements under that deal from China to Hong Kong. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, because I don't know if it's going to necessarily be a tit for tat type of relationship between the United States and between the Chinese government. And you can see that that caused a lot of that sell-off going into the day as we've got that meeting tomorrow. We also have seen a bill that we've talked about that has some potential delisting information, potential sanctions on Chinese stocks and Chinese trade. So how did that affect the broader market? Well, if we look at JD.com, you can see that going into the day, we saw that big sell-off that matches the market. The reason I highlight that is going into the afternoon, we're up to 52.50, we'll call it. And then going down, we lost nearly $2 of market value for them. So we're looking at really a 4% decline pretty quickly. Again, a lot of that has, or some of that has recovered, but I think a lot of this is going to be dependent on what we see going into tomorrow. So another big one that saw huge sales volume is Alibaba. Alibaba has come out and said, hey, we don't know if we're going to be able to stay if this were to happen. So if I look at the month action, you can see that we're still bumping along those month lows. This is after they announced earnings last week, and we actually had really good earnings reports, some good build up, yet we're still going down. So it's important to look at this information and to see, well, what does this mean for the broader marketplace? What does this mean? I mean, we're talking huge sales volume right here on these Chinese stocks. The last one that I want to look at is Baidu. So all of these, again, look at this candle. It's straight red, huge volume, and that's coming off into the day. But you can see that a lot of these stocks are trading at or near where they opened. So we're setting up for what's going to happen. I do have some puts on a Chinese stock that is called BILI, or BILI, and this is a streaming platform. You can see that I'm up a little bit. I got these earlier in the week, so this is actually the first time that they've been positive. I've got one that's way out of the money, and then I've got one that's a little bit more reasonable, but still pretty far out the money. I'm not looking to hold these to expiration, just want to flip the premium. The reason that I highlight some of these moves is because this is going to continue to rattle the market and rattle investors. However, one of my concerns is if you look at the options premiums, now remember that these are not going to be totally up to date because the market is closed, but the options premiums are expensive. So you can see that these calls you're looking at, this is just next week. We're not seeing a lot of volume on the bullish side. However, on the bearish side, you can see that increased volume at this point in time in terms of that pricing. And this is just next week, so we are expecting some pretty big moves. I mean, this is a 4%, 5%. These are some big moves that we're expecting to see here, and that's pretty expensive premium. So it may make more sense to say, hey, we're going to see how far out we can go and see if this move makes sense. So these are the puts here, but you can still look at some of these moves, and I think that they're going to warrant additional income and be worthwhile. So there's a lot to look at. There's a lot moving right now. Lastly, the thing I want to highlight, if we're going back to SPY and just the broader market, they have revised that they anticipate the annualized GDP to be negative 5%. That's up from negative 4.8%. As the economy continues to get off to a slow start, despite what the market says here. I mean, if you look at the 1 year, we're already back at where we were, and I believe this is November last year. Yes, we're already back there. This is a weighted indices. I do anticipate that the market is going to have some corrections. I don't know if you're going to see it across the broader S&P 500, but there are going to be companies that don't make it through this as strong as they could have. They are going to struggle. So be watching for some of those pullbacks. It'll continue to be choppy. We're going to continue to see a lot of moves, and that just sets us up for some additional plays. So all that being said, watch the China news tomorrow. Let's see what happens. And if you found this content helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.